The flickering gas lamp cast long, dancing shadows on the cobblestone street. Thomas hurried home, collar pulled high against the biting wind. A movement flickered at the edge of his vision. He turned sharply. Nothing. Just an empty alleyway, shrouded in darkness. He dismissed it as a trick of the light, but a shiver snaked down his spine. Something felt wrong, out of place. The next morning he saw it again. A fleeting darkness, elongated and distorted, lurking at the periphery of his sight. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. Thomas tried to shake off the unease. He was tired, stressed. His mind was playing tricks on him. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. Days turned into weeks. The fleeting glimpses of the shadow became more frequent, bolder. It began to appear in broad daylight, a silent spectre haunting his every move. At work, it stretched across his desk, its edges blurring like smoke. At home, it loomed in the corners of his apartment, a constant, unnerving presence. Thomas couldn't escape it. No matter where he went, the shadow followed. It lingered just outside his grasp, refusing to be ignored. Fear, cold and sharp, began to gnaw at the edges of his sanity. The constant presence of the shadow began to unravel Thomas's life. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that clung to him like a shroud. He couldn't focus at work, his thoughts constantly returning to the silent spectre that dogged his every step. His friends, concerned by his erratic behavior and haunted eyes, began to distance themselves. He sought solace in explanations, hallucinations brought on by stress, a brain tumor. The doctors found nothing. He was deemed physically healthy, yet he felt like he was teetering on the edge of an abyss, dragged down by an unseen force. Desperation clawed at him, fueling a frantic search for answers. He scoured libraries, poring over ancient texts and obscure journals, searching for anything that could explain the chilling phenomenon that was consuming his life. One rainy afternoon, tucked away in the dusty archives of a forgotten bookstore, he stumbled upon a leather-bound volume. Its pages, brittle with age, contained cryptic symbols and faded script. He couldn't read the language, but as he traced the strange symbols with his fingers, a cold dread washed over him. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that he had found what he was looking for. Days turned into weeks as Thomas struggled to decipher the ancient text. He sought out scholars and linguists, desperate for someone to translate the cryptic symbols that haunted his waking hours. Finally, he found an old professor, a recluse, who had dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of forgotten languages.
The book spoke of shadows, entities that were tethered to souls, harbingers of destinies yet to unfold. These shadows, the book claimed, were not omens of death, but echoes of the future, reflections of choices made and paths taken.
Thomas was both horrified and strangely relieved. His shadow was real, not a figment of his imagination. But what did it mean? What future was it showing him? Driven by a desperate hope, Thomas resolved to confront his shadow. He would demand answers, force it to reveal the reason for its relentless pursuit. He spent days preparing himself, steeling his nerves for the encounter that he knew would change his life forever. He chose a place of power, an ancient graveyard bathed in the silver light of a full moon. The air hung heavy with the weight of ages, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant chime of a clock tower. His heart pounded against his ribs, a drumbeat of fear and anticipation. He stood in the center of a circle of crumbling headstones, his shadow stretching long and distorted in the moonlight.
I know you're there. Show yourself.
The shadow flickered at the edge of the graveyard, a dark silhouette against the pale stone. It moved closer, slowly, deliberately, until it stood directly in front of him. For the first time, Thomas saw it clearly. It was him, or rather a twisted, distorted version of himself. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its mouth was stretched into a silent scream.
What do you want?
Thomas whispered, his voice trembling. The shadow remained silent, its form shifting and swirling like smoke. It raised its hand, pointing a long, skeletal finger at Thomas's chest. Then, in a voice that seemed to emanate from the very air around him, it spoke.